Well, welcome everyone to the Fierce Grace broadcast this evening. So I'd like for us all just to start, by letting go of the day, letting go of the week, giving ourselves full permission to fully and completely arrive here. Just to stop whatever it is we're doing and fully be here. It's a very difficult topic, which I'm going to speak about tonight. I received so many emails and saw so many people this week who have been deeply struggling. With this experience of fierce grace. And so I thought instead of answering any of the questions, I kind of lumped all the questions into one giant question. And I prepared a short talk, which I'll give. And then we'll just see what happens. But one of the things I want to do first, as we're getting started here and arriving, is just a couple moments ago, I saw this picture of a little baby, in Nepal that was picked up out of the rubble. And she had dust, dirt, concrete dust all over her body. And a rescue worker, it looked like a soldier, had picked her up and was just holding her. When I saw that, I saw my own child, my own baby. And it brought up such feelings of heartache, such feelings of sadness. And I think it's really helpful just to honor, what has happened in this world. That something really incredibly painful has happened to a lot of people in the last couple days. And so I thought it might be nice for us to just get in touch with our highest nature and to send all the people struggling a sense of hope and a sense of love. Now, can we open our hearts to these people? These people we are one with, this earth that we are one with. Can we send all of our brothers and sisters, all the plants and animals, everyone struggling? Can we just send them right now a sense of love, a sense of peace, a sense of hope, and compassion and embrace from our hearts? Of course, if you have means, I would encourage you to send some money, to send some financial aid. There's a number of wonderful organizations out there. I sent money through Amachi's organization. It's amachi.org. She does incredible aid work in the world. And it's even said that the UN has studied her organization because she's so efficient in delivering the aid. So that's the organization that I'd like to send my support through. But whatever means resonates with your heart. Now, can we support our brothers and sisters? Sometimes people say, well, it's their karma that happened. But of course, it's our karma that we are able to help. And so can we send some help, whether it's in the form of love and compassion and financial assistance or whatever means possible? Can we honor our brothers and sisters who are deeply struggling, in this moment. And so with that, I thought I'd get right into the talk this evening. Oftentimes I tell people that all is God, all is grace. And that's an easy thing to hear when things are going our way, when life is good, when we're seated, in a yoga or meditation retreat. And we have all these ideas about what God is. We have this idea that God is good, and that the goodness that we're referring to is the goodness defined by our egoic nature. But the thing about God, the thing about life is she is beyond any egoic definition. She is beyond pairs of opposites. She's beyond good and bad, right and wrong. She's beyond our ideas and opinions of her. And in fact, to take the time to contemplate God is to actually step beyond our mind. Because the way our mind works is our mind defines life in dualistic terms. This is good and this is bad. This is right and this is wrong. When you see something like an earthquake, when you see something like a child, covered in rubble, your body's torn to pieces, it's easy to say that that is bad. And of course, from a human perspective, it is absolutely terrible. It's heart-wrenching to see such a thing. When I saw the picture of the little child, the little baby, I had to really hold back the tears. Because there was so much sadness there was so much heartache, there was so much hurt. But this world that we live in, it's a wild world, it's a crazy world. It's an evolutionary world. And in evolutionary worlds, these types of things happen. And like right now, there's someone outside my office, and it seems like they're having a fit out there, out in the street. And they're getting kind of crazy. So I apologize if you hear any background noise. But it's a crazy world, it's a wild world, it's a chaotic world. And again, if we want to be a good spiritual person, we might just like to only think positive and paint the world, some place that's filled with rainbows and unicorns and act like everything is perfect. But to live in that place in our mind is to deny the truth that this world is a brutal world, it's a violent world. It's a world where we get our butt kicked. I talk to people every single day. They come to me with deep struggles, deep pain. And to not acknowledge that would be to not acknowledge the truth of this world. But to say that the world is good or to say that it's bad is not really the deepest truth, the absolute truth. The absolute truth is that this world is beyond good and bad. It's beyond our definition. And so before we pick up the topic of fierce grace, I want to be clear here. I'm not speaking from an egoic perspective. I'm not speaking from an ultra positive or ultra negative perspective. But when you see life through God's eye, you see that this world is everything and nothing and cannot be defined in any way. It is beyond the play or pairs of opposites. But also, when you step into your heart and connect with God, connect with this vision, you will find that there is an overarching intelligence, an overarching goodness, an overarching plan. Of course, to say that in the eyes of such terrible destruction, it seems almost crazy, almost brutal, almost inhumane. And from one perspective, it is. It is inhumane. Excuse me. But again, can we hold this paradox, this great paradox? And we live in a world of sickness, old age, death, destruction, rape, war, torture. But we also live in a world of unimaginable beauty, unimaginable wonder, unimaginable potential and growth and expansion. And people often ask me, why is the world the way it is? Well, I could offer a very Buddhist answer and say, because it is. Because it is. But I could also connect into a different perspective and see that this world is a world of growth, is a world of evolution. And in evolutionary worlds, pain, sadness, heartache, alcoholism, disease, sickness, all kinds of crazy things come forward. And they are avenues for growth. And sometimes they're avenues of growth over lifetimes. Over lifetimes. See, this is the vision of God. Is that God's vision is not just for this lifetime. It's over many lifetimes. Over many lifetimes. And so when we step into a perspective that includes many lifetimes, we can have a broader sense of peace, a broader sense of trust, a broader sense of faith and compassion. That there's a greater plan at work. And when our feet are in the dirt, when our heart is being ripped out of us, when our child dies, or our partner, our lover dies in our arms, it's very difficult to see this. It's very difficult to have faith, to have trust. And so this is God's invitation for us. This is life's invitation for us. Is can we see and meet life from this greater perspective? And of course, it doesn't mean that we don't honor our humanity. It doesn't mean that we don't honor our pain, our sadness, or sickness, or whatever it is that's within us. We fully honor what is within us. Yet at the same time, can we hold this vast view, this great view? And oftentimes, this view, it doesn't have any words. It has no words. When you see tremendous destruction, there's no words. There's nothing you can say which will make it right. There's nothing you can say, to someone who's struggling and deep in egoic pain. Now you can try to go up to them and say, this is God's plan, but you may get punched in the face because that's absolutely the wrong thing to say in that moment. Now the right thing to do is to sit and listen and to hold the space of love, to hold the space of peace, to hold the space of hope. And I think during times like this is what God asks of us. Can we hold the space of love? Can we hold the space of peace? while this world seems to fall apart. And so I'm just going to take a look at my what I wrote down. Excuse me. I'm also struggling with a cold this evening. My daughter got sick, and then my wife got sick, and then my baby got sick, and me too. And so we all are sharing this experience right now. But it's a crazy thing, what God gives us. When I was younger on the spiritual path, I had questions like, what kind of God would make sickness? What kind of God would make suffering? And I became very angry at God. I would fight with God. I would scream at God. Why are you doing this to us? Why would you make a world like this? Until one day my heart broke open and I saw a greater vision, a vision beyond my human mind. And this greater vision, it holds a space for the big picture, the vast view. But again, on a human level, it doesn't make any of it okay. It doesn't make any of it right. To see a baby die, that could never be right in our humanity. But from the big picture, if you imagine what it's like to be God, well, there's millions of people that are dying each day and coming into another heaven world. And to you, it's all according to your plan. But to us as humans, there are never words which will help us to understand it. There are never words which will make it right. So I'm just looking at what I wrote here. In a sense, what God is doing oftentimes in our life is coming to us, pushing us past our limits, challenging us, breaking us down, and doing this over and over again. And then finally, I think she just pushes us off the cliff into the great unknown, into a space beyond anything which we knew was possible, beyond any amount of pain which we thought we could take. And she just gently says to us, you're welcome to fight, or you can surrender to my will. You can surrender to my way. And so this is what God does. Through this brutal act of fierce grace, she pushes us off the cliff, beyond our mind, beyond what our egos think is capable or possible. Again, I was just speaking with someone earlier today. He said, Craig, I cannot take this any longer. I cannot handle it. I said, yes, good. Then let go. Let go. Because your mind will never figure this world out. Your mind will never make everything right, or be able to explain all these terrible things which have happened to us. The only thing we can do is to let go into something greater, into a greater mind, a greater space, a greater love, of compassion, of openness. And this comes through a willingness to fully feel, to fully experience everything in this world, without walls, without divisions. And so as I was contemplating, this experience of fierce grace, oftentimes when it initially comes to us, our egoic nature is completely shocked. It is kicking, it's screaming, it's fighting, it's resisting, it's struggling. It's denying. It's trying to avoid or escape this tremendous shock. But when God is in charge, we can't avoid this thing. If we avoid it, God simply turns up the heat, or God gives us an opportunity to repeat it again and again and again. Early on in my career as a counselor, I did alcohol counseling or substance abuse counseling. I'd teach these classes, and people would come for the first class, and then they'd come for the second class, and then they would come for the third class. And by coming for the class, I mean, the first time they got in trouble, they'd get a DUI, which means driving while intoxicated for those of you not in the United States. And the court would assign them to take 45 classes, counseling classes. And then they'd go back, after they completed their classes, start drinking again, trying to avoid their problems, and then get caught again for another DUI and another 45 classes. And sometimes I would see guys, and it would be their third class, their fourth class, their fourth series of classes. And they'd be telling the same story over and over again, living in an active sense of denial. And this is what our ego does, is our ego, it lives in the world of the past. It lives in the world of habit. It lives in a world of repetition. It lives in a world of not wanting to change. But God, who is one giant evolutionary machine, is constantly asking us, constantly challenging us to grow beyond what we are. And so if we're banging our head up against the wall with the court system and DUI classes, what God does is sends us another policeman to arrest us and sends us back to jail, back to the classes. If we're struggling with, a mother-in-law, then God makes the mother-in-law act even more crazy. If we're struggling with insecurity, oftentimes our partner will do something to make us feel more insecure. They'll betray us or harm us or hurt us. I can remember at one point in my life, I was being betrayed by 3, 4, maybe even 5 different people all at once. And my mind was screaming, why is this happening? What is going on? I was yelling at God. I was fighting with everyone. And then a moment of clarity and insight came to me. Oh, I woke up out of being a victim, and I realized that I couldn't be betrayed, that who and what I was could not be harmed, could not be hurt. And then I got this giant smile on my face when I realized what pain, what heartache, what anger, what jealousy, what sadness I had to face and embrace to realize that none of it could kill me, none of it could harm me, none of it could destroy me. How wonderful a teacher that was. How brutal a teacher it was. It was. How brutal a teacher it was. But yet how wonderful. It took those things. It took being betrayed and being let down and being stabbed in the back so many different ways for me to realize that I couldn't be harmed, that I couldn't be hurt. And so see, these are the brutal lessons that God is trying to teach us. Is that what we are is greater than what we know ourselves to be. We are not simply an egoic mind. We are not simply a human mind. That we also have the potential to have a divine mind. Yet the way we get to the divine mind, the way we get to realizing our absolute non-dual nature, is not through just simply doing some inquiry questions and having a realization on our meditation cushion. It's through we realize our complete, indestructible, non-dual nature, through having our heart ripped out, through having a kid leave us, a child we raise, look at us and give us a finger and tell us, excuse my language, but to go fuck ourselves or whatever it is. To have a parent die and to realize that we are okay and that they are okay. To walk through the doorway of sickness and disease and to discover that this too will not kill us, even if it does kill us. Now, this is the great paradox of being human and being divine. I was laying in bed earlier today, feeling terribly ill, and simultaneously feeling vast, spacious, awake, and overwhelmed with bliss. And so it's a crazy thing, it's a crazy experience to be human. To be human. And so the first stage, when this fierce grace comes to us, our egoic nature, it's good to map these things because then we can see it gives us some perspective. Our egoic nature will fight, will resist, will get angry, will attack, will ignore, will deny. And that's what an ego does. And so what this grace is doing is it's challenging us to live beyond that way. And this grace, it does not let up. It will not let up. Until we are willing to step into this greater space. And again, sometimes we're completely unwilling and grace doesn't care. And so she just pushes us off the cliff. And that's when we really realize, oh, who's actually in charge here? Who's actually the boss here? Her or me? You see, our ego has so many ideas of who is in control, what's right, what's wrong, what should and should not happen. But sometimes grace just comes along and pushes us off the cliff. And if we're lucky, we'll smile. If we're fortunate, our heart will break open. And we will see our beauty, and we will also see God's beauty as one. And we will see that we do have the power, we do have the strength to go forward, despite the overwhelming heartache, despite the overwhelming chaos of our minds, of our emotional nature. And so, fierce grace is by far the ultimate teacher. And so through this process, we are asked to give up everything we believe which isn't true. So for example, when all these people were betraying me, I had a belief that they shouldn't betray me, that this should not happen. Yet the truth was, it was happening. I could argue with it all day long, but the truth was, it was happening. And so then the invitation became, can I accept the fact that sometimes in life people betray us? Sometimes our partners betray us. Sometimes our mother, our father betrays us. Oftentimes it's the closest people to us that betray us. So can we just simply accept that fact? It doesn't feel good. Part of acceptance means that we are willing to fully feel the sadness, the anger, the hurt, the heartache. I was speaking with someone earlier in the week. We were speaking about acceptance. And she said, yes, I accept this. I accept it. But as she said it more and more, I saw that her body became tighter and tenser. She became more and more angry. And I just simply said to her, sweetheart, if you've truly accepted this, your heart would be breaking open, not shutting down. You would be becoming more tender and compassionate. You would allow that sadness to come forward within yourself. You would shed some tears. This is what it means to truly accept something. It means we're willing to fully feel everything, to honor our own anger, sadness, guilt, rage, whatever it is, and meet it with a sense of loving presence. That's what acceptance is. Acceptance isn't some cold, non-dual place where we say, I accept it, and we simply transcend it and act like it doesn't exist. And so this is the invitation, is if we have beliefs, if we believe things which aren't true, can we accept that it is true that these things are happening? We can argue all day long that this earthquake should not have happened. But the cold truth is, it did happen. Many thousands of people lost their lives. And that's painful. I could start crying right now, feeling into that pain. And so part of acceptance is being willing to feel that pain, to honor our humanity, not to deny it, not to ignore it. I had a dear friend this year die. He was probably 38 years old. And he died. And I had to feel the pain, the heartache, the sadness of it. And this is part of acceptance. This is part of not arguing with reality. And to truly heal, to truly be free, we have to be willing to also fully and completely honor our humanity. Honor the fact that we do have emotions. But again, as long as we're arguing and saying these things should not happen, and we will never be free and we won't make any progress. We will remain stuck and we will remain victims. And so, one of the things that God is asking of us is, can we take full responsibility for our humanity, for our thoughts, for our emotions? Can we take full responsibility of them and for them? And basically what this means is, can we bring ourselves into right alignment with the truth? And like I was saying previously, can we honor any sadness, anger, despair within us and meet it with a fullness of love and compassion, and not ask others to do that for us? You see, when I was being a victim, when I was being betrayed by those close to me, what my egoic nature wanted was for them to change. But when we ask someone else to change, we are being terribly inefficient. And we remain a victim. We remain powerless. And so when fierce grace comes, she often asks us to take full responsibility for our life. And what that means is, it doesn't mean that I'm taking responsibility for the fact that people betrayed me. The betrayal happened. I didn't do it, they did it. But I'm taking full responsibility for my reactions to the betrayal. Or can I be an adult and admit, yes, sometimes people betray us. Yes, it hurts. And just to know that oftentimes the reason people act mean is because they are in suffering. The people who betrayed me, they were in suffering. And when I've betrayed others, I've been in suffering. And so we all know this. The only time we are mean, the only time we lash out, the only time we are not honest is when we are in suffering, when we are in great pain, when we are living in fear and insecurity, when we are in the grips of desire or attachment. And so can we forgive the others? And can we take care of our emotions? Can we take care of our hurt? Can we take care of our heartache, our sadness? Can we take care of ourselves? Can we stop blaming and stop being victims? And it is true. You know, sometimes life comes and destroys our home. Sometimes life comes and takes our child from us. Sometimes life comes and steals our car, takes our job. And by not being a victim, I don't mean we don't give ourselves permission to be human. By all means, give yourself the time and the experience of being human. Be willing to open-heartedly feel your pain, experience your grief. Now, don't simply try to transcend it and act like this thing didn't exist. Honor fully what is within you. And as you honor fully what is within you, you're taking the time to get in touch with your innate strength, your innate love, your unconditional compassion. We all have this capability to be like Christ, to be like Buddha, to be like Gandhi. We all have the capability to be greater than what we are. And so when life gives us great difficulty, by all means, grieve the difficulty. Be sensitive with yourself. Be sensitive with your humanity. Take the time to take care of yourself. And through that process, let that process open your heart to a greater strength, a greater love, a greater compassion. And so one of the things that I often forget, and I often take for granted, is that people do not know that what they are is good, is divine. And so first and foremost, it's helpful to know your divinity, to know your beauty, to know your goodness. And this is why it is helpful to have a spiritual practice. This is why it's helpful to spend some time each day in silence, where you're feeling your heart, you're experiencing your heart, you're experiencing your unconditional love, you're experiencing your true divine nature. And so when you do that over and over again, you begin to develop a confidence in your goodness, a confidence in your divinity. There begins to be some ground under your feet. It's funny because it's like a groundless ground, but just deeply knowing, deeply trusting that what you are is good, that what you are is divine, that what you are is pure. And so that when God comes to you and shakes and rattles your life through this experience of fierce grace, you know what you are. And you know that you are good. And you know that you've outlived every painful, terrible experience you've had in this lifetime and all your lifetimes. And so I encourage you to begin to build this strength of confidence, this strength of knowingness in your true divinity, your true divine nature. I encourage you to practice each day, but not practice in a way where you're trying to get rid of yourself, but instead practice in a way where you're trying to discover yourself, where you're opening to your heart, where you're feeling your beauty, where you're feeling your divinity, where you're experiencing the quietude and spaciousness of your mind, out of which all thoughts arise. Where you're standing on your yoga mat and you're feeling the radiance of your heart, the aliveness of your being, the beauty of your presence. Now I encourage you to practice every day until the practice simply becomes a way of life. It simply becomes a way of being. Now, so many people on the spiritual path, they don't take the time to practice, and then they wonder why they're overwhelmed by life. Well, we become overwhelmed because we have no inner stability. It's a radical act of love for you to take the time to develop an inner stability, an inner knowingness. And again, not some philosophical knowingness through reading non-dual books or religious scriptures. Not that kind of knowingness. A deep knowingness in your heart, a deep knowingness in your gut. So that when life pushes you to the limit, the first person you look to is to God, is to your heart. You say, God, help me through this. I know you're here with me. And you can feel God's presence right away. Right away. Now, anytime I struggle, I call upon God. And right away I say, oh, thank you, you are here, of course. Of course. And then we're filled with faith. We're filled with hope. We're filled with trust. And not the kind of faith like the blind faith, but a faith of direct experience. Oh yes, I'm not alone in this. I'm not alone in this world of samsara. I'm not alone in this world of pain. And so can we call upon this greater thing and allow this greater thing to enliven us, to enlighten us in greater ways, in fuller ways? Can we allow this greater thing to expand our true divine nature? Can we allow it to expand our divinity and expand our humanity? Can we allow this greater thing to break down these faulty ideas and belief systems that we have? And we have so many survival beliefs in our mind. We have so many attachments. We have so many fears. And those fears are helpful to some extent. If you're standing on a cliff, fear is a good thing. If someone is screaming at you, fear is a good thing. Perhaps the fear will tell you to leave the situation or to speak up and defend yourself. That's a good thing. But also, fear is just, it is in our cells. It's throughout our humanity. In a sense, our whole brain is wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. And if we're going to be free, if we're going to live with a divine mind, we have to be willing to step into a perspective that is greater than our current perspective, that's greater than what we know ourselves to be. And so this is what God is inviting of us through a sense of fierce grace. She's pushing us, she's breaking us down, she's challenging every belief, every emotion. You know, an emotion may scream, I can't take this, this is too much. And God gently smiles and says, yes, you can, and pushes you further until in the heart of the pain, the heart of the emotion, it breaks open and you see clearly. You know, out of your gut erupts a laughter. This too shall pass. This too did not kill me. This too did not harm me. And it's a very ironic and paradoxical thing. In that moment, we discover bliss in the greatest heartache. We discover spaciousness in the moment of our greatest pain. We discover a divine intelligence in a moment of despair. And again, there's no way for our mind to understand this, because what I'm speaking about is beyond mind, beyond the normal everyday egoic filter which most of humanity sees life from. Yet all of us are being challenged. Every single one of us here on earth are being challenged in one form or another. I saw a very funny movie last night. I think the name of it is called The Monk and His Camera. It's something like that. And it's about this Western monk. And he grew up in a very wealthy family, very prominent family. You know, in the United States and in Paris, and traveled the world. I think maybe it was his aunt or uncle was a famous fashion photographer. And when he was young, he said he wanted to learn how to take pictures. And so they gave him a camera and taught him how to take pictures. And then at some point, he decided to renounce all his worldly ways and become a monk. And so he moved to India, became a Buddhist monk. Very beautiful story. And of course, in the Buddhist tradition, the highest teachings are on that of no self. And so you don't do anything to honor yourself. You don't do anything to validate yourself. If you have a desire, to take pictures, you ignore and deny that desire. And so it's funny what his struggle was as he was in his, his little monk room, for 13 years, at the monastery, always trying to get rid of. He was always trying to get rid of this part of himself that was gifted at taking pictures. And so he tried again and again to get rid of this. He hid his camera in the trunk under his bed. But at one point, I think someone told the Dalai Lama that he took pictures, and the Dalai Lama said, "You have to take pictures. You must take pictures." And so, him being the good student, he began to take these beautiful pictures, these wonderful pictures. But because he lived in a place of profound clarity, of profound vision, he was able to take such incredible pictures. And so he started to take pictures again. And then at one point he said, no, I'm getting too involved in this. I'm getting too attached to it. He had an idea that he wasn't allowed to be attached to his pictures. And so he put the camera away again. And so the story went on. At some point they were building a monastery. And it was right before the financial collapse in 2008. And all these people had said they were going to donate this money. But after the collapse happened, the people didn't have the money to donate. And his monastery was being flooded with new monks every day. And because the monks were fleeing Tibet and all the pain that was happening in Tibet and coming to India and coming to the monastery, he didn't have a place for them to sleep. And sometimes they were sleeping, 12 or 13 per room. And he couldn't figure out, how to raise the funds. He called friends and family and had a very difficult time raising the funds to complete the monastery. But then again, someone said to him, maybe you should share and sell your pictures. And of course, to a Buddhist monk, this would be the, one of the greatest things that he would want to avoid. And so he was wrecked, internally. It was such turmoil of, is it okay for me to do this? So life found the perfect thing. Life gave him this wonderful gift, and also put him in this position, where he had to choose. But of course the choice was obvious. What God wanted, what life wanted, was not for him to choose to be a monk or a photographer, but for him to be both. God wanted him to live beyond the teachings of no self and to express his gift in the world, to express his beauty in the world. And so he went and he had to go to all these galleries all over the world and share his pictures and sell his pictures. And he raised a tremendous amount of money and was able to complete the monastery. To his utter dismay, he was doing what he thought was opposite of what he should be doing. God was showing him that there's a greater way here. To you or I, it seems simple. It's like, hey, it's not a big deal. Take your picture, share your gift. But to him, he was just plagued and stricken. And that he was breaking his vows, or that he wasn't being a good monk. So it's a beautiful story. At the end of it, the Dalai Lama actually invited him to be the abbot of the monastery. And he was one of the first Westerners to be an abbot, of a very important monastery, Tibetan Buddhist monastery. So it's an incredible honor he was given. And so that too he struggled with. Because he wasn't Tibetan. He didn't speak the language. He spoke it somewhat, but it wasn't his native tongue. There was other people who were much more qualified. And see, these are the types of situation God puts us in. In these situations where we feel as if we're screwed. If we feel as if there's no direction to go. But there is always some place to go. There's always some place for us in this world. Because what we are is divine. And this world is divine. And the challenges are divine. So this is our great paradox. Can we embrace the path which is before us? Can we embrace our beauty? Can we embrace our divinity? And simultaneously, can we embrace our humanity and the great paradox of this world? So I want to thank you all so much for joining me this evening. I'm going to retire early this evening, take care of my wife and daughter. And I just ask that again, we just take a moment to send a sense of hope, and a sense of love and compassion to those in Nepal and to all those suffering, ourselves included. Can we give ourselves permission to feel the heartache, the pain, the sadness, yet to feel it from a place of compassion, to feel it and experience it from a place of love, and to discover the strength, the truth, our unconditional love, our inherent indestructibility through it all. And so I invite you to touch into that place, to step into that place. If sadness comes, it's okay. If heartache comes, it's okay. Can you meet the sadness? Can you meet the heartache? Can you meet the grief? Can you meet your questions of why is the world the way it is? From this greater place within you, a place of deep trust, a place which has outlived every experience you've ever had. So I invite you to join me in this and to send this love both to yourself and out to all of life. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be filled with an incredible love. Take good care, and until next time.